Hi everyone, my name is Nazaria Young and this is my cohort 1, project 1 submission. The title of my project is Analysis of Google Stock Data Obtained from Macro Trends to Determine the Following Google Stock Trends from 2014 to 2020. 1. The impact of Google's opening stock values on volume of stocks purchased. 2. How Google's average stock values obtained from open, low, high, and close values change with time. 3. How Google's closing values change with time. And 4. I did a comparison of how 3 different stock values, which are the low, high, close values, change with time. To begin, Google data was obtained from macro trends, and here is the link, in CVS form and saved locally on my computer. The data was then imported into Google Colab notebook for review, manipulation, preparation, analysis, and visualization using Panda and Boca. So I launched the Google Colab website online, imported the Google CSV file and printed the entire data to take a look at the data, and I found out that the data had 1,563 rows and 6 columns. And so here is the table with 1,565 rows and 6 columns. So the columns are date, open, high, low, close, and volume stock values. To understand the data a little bit further, I used the describe and info functions as follows, and here are the results that I got from the info. It provided me with the data types. So the date has the object data type, open, high, low, close, volume stock values. So the open, high, low, close stock values have a float data type, and the volume had an integer. I then ran the describe function, which provided me with mean, standard deviation, and percentiles with the count and the maximum values for each of the columns. I wanted to view just the top, bottom, and so the top and the bottom values for just 5 rows. So I used the head and tail functions to view that. And then I also wanted to see just the first 10 rows of data. So I used the log function to view the table. I also used the greater than function because I wanted to see specifically if there are any opening stock values that are greater than 0.1, and yes, I found a lot of them, actually all of them. I then, in order to answer the questions that I asked above, I calculated the average price for Google using the open and close and low and high values. So I added all these up and divided by 4, and that provided me with these results. I then wanted to find out if there were any differences between the close and stock value, so I just used the subtraction function, and I got some results. And these results are alongside with the averages that I obtained above. I added the results back to the original table, so I have, instead of 6 columns now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns. Again, I reviewed just the top 5 values, and this time around it popped up with the average price and the stock change calculations. Now I extracted just the date, the open and volume values into a table which I would use for visualizations. In order to begin my interactive visualization, I set up Bocar as follows, and I called up Notebook. But first, I determined my X and Y axis. So I wanted to use the open and the volume data to see if the volume of stocks purchased depends on the opening values. So I printed the open and volume data. I created a source for them, and then I used the figure function, and I decided to use the bar chart to visualize this. And so when I called up the figure, here is the graphic that I obtained, which is the bar chart. And just looking at this bar chart, see the Y values have the volume of stock purchased, and the X values have the opening values. You can see the opening values run from about 500 to 1,500. And yeah, just looking at this bar chart, you can see that the highest volumes are obtained when the opening stock values are a bit lower, about around 500 to 800. Yeah, and obviously as the cost or as the value of the stock increased, the volume of stocks purchased were a bit lower compared to here. That said, still just looking at the stock, when the value was about 1,500, still a good amount of stocks were being purchased. Yeah, because like most of them really were purchased, irrespective of whether the cost of the stock was 500 or 1,500. And I'm going to explain this at the end of the video. So that was it for a comparison of total volume and the opening values. Then I wanted to use the time series function to compare trends with time so I could answer the rest of the 3 questions I asked above. To begin with, I had to convert the dates into date time, and then I pulled up my average price, the close values, and I used the figure function for average price and the date. And here is the time series figure that I obtained. So the y-axis has the average prices and the x-axis has the date. And you can see that starting from 2014 up to 2020, the average prices have been increasing. And the increase is not steady. There's fluctuations, so the prices drop sometimes, but they go back right up. And up to 2020, there was a drastic drop in the value of the stock, and this can be explained by the pandemic. But however, there was a sharp increase right after the pandemic. I'm going to say more about this at the end. So let's move on to the comparison for the 3 different stocks. So again, I pulled up the date, close, low, value, and high because I wanted to compare 3 different stocks, the trend with time. So again, I pulled up the figure function using all the 3. First using the closing values, and the trend was similar to what I obtained above for averages. I called up the low and high data, and now I plotted a figure with the 3 different stock column, so the high, low, and close. And again, you can see the trend is just the same as the two above. In order to have a better visualization of all, I use the row function in Boker, and so I displayed all the graphs in a row. Let me just scroll to the right so you can see. And then I also use the column so I could watch or view them in a column. Okay, so let me summarize all the results that I obtained in my attempt to answer the questions that I asked initially. So initially, I wanted to find out the impact of Google's opening stock values on the volume. So what I found out is that the volume of stocks seemed to be higher with low opening stock values, which makes sense because a lot of people buy stocks when stock values drop. However, a good volume of the stocks was still purchased even when stock values were highest. And this can only be explained by the quality of the Google stock, as people usually buy more stocks irrespective of the prices. So for us, the stock is of high quality and there is lesser risk, right? So like I said, even though the price of the Google stock is at 1,500, like that's still a good number of or volume of stocks that are being purchased, like all along you can see. Yeah, because quality is good, so people know that if they purchase the stock, even though they're purchasing at a higher amount, that are still gonna make money from the stock. But some other people, a lot more other people, still prefer to buy stocks when the value is lower. And this generally applies to all kinds of stocks. My second question was to find out if Google average values obtained how they change with time. And again, from this average price graph, you can see that yes, they do increase with time. The increase is not steady. There is fluctuations along the way. The stock was hit by pandemic. There was a drastic drop, but again, drastic rise to about the same value. So, and my conclusion was again that Google stock is a very good stock to invest in if you're looking to invest because of that increase in value throughout the years. Again, I wanted to find out if closing values changed with time, and yes, they did change with time. They also increased with time, and the trend is exactly the same as for the average prices. And when I did again the calculation to compare all three low, high, and close prices with time, I saw again the exact same trend explained above. Yeah, so this is a summary of my project with the Google stock. And if you can't take anything away from this, you can take away the fact that Google can be a good stock to invest in. A lot of people still invest in the stock even when the stock price is high, because they know that there's less risk involved with the stock and that the value of the stock will always be increasing. And we know what Google provides for us, so I don't think that there is ever going to be a day when we will not need to use Google, and that's why it's a very valuable stock with its value increasing as time passes by. So I would end here but being that I was like a beginner getting into this course, I actually began the project with Microsoft Data, but I was having a lot of issues with my Microsoft Data that I decided to use the class data provided with the course information, coursework to run my project. So I actually did a little exercise with the class data, which I just decided to add in here since I already did that. This class data, again, I launched Panda